Hey guys, so finally got something a little newer to work on for a change. So this is pretty much the industry standard now for like push mower engines. It's vertical shaft. It's sitting on the workbench off a mower, obviously. That's why it's sitting at an angle like this. This is a 500E or 140, and there's several variances on this, but if it looks similar to this, it probably has this type of carburetor on it, which is a plastic bowl or float type carburetor. And this is an overhead valve engine. So today's video is going to be how to remove and clean this type of carburetor. And there's not much to these really, and they're cheap to replace. If you can't get it going, you just get a new carburetor for hardly nothing. Obviously this is going to be in this orientation on your mower, but the same thing. So this cover comes off. It's where your nasty air filter's at. And you have a series of bolts in here. And one of these is missing because I had this off for another video and somehow lost one of the bolts. But these two bolts here go into the carburetor itself. There's one right here, and the other one would be right here. So these two are one size, and these two are another size. I don't know why they did it like that, but let me get the tools to fit it, and we'll take it apart. For the two mounting bolts that hold the casing on here, an 8mm fits them. Like I said, in this case we just have one because somehow lost the other one in another video. So you take this all the way out. Okay. And these other two, and this one's also 8mm that would be here, like I said, it's missing. But these two are 7mm. I find it easier just to use a T20 Torx bit driver, because these are almost like a sheet metal screw almost. So you take these off, and this cover comes off. And if you feel a little bit of resistance there, this little pipe that sticks out right here, that's where your crankcase vent hose goes into. And it's actually easier to take the plastic flywheel shroud off here. You just have 3 screws to take them off. One of them's a different size too. It's almost like they don't want you to take it apart. So with this cover removed, you can get to the carburetor and everything. It's just a little bit more difficult to put back together. So the first thing you got to do is unhook this fuel hose clamp. Get it out of the way. You can take it off here in a second. Now this carburetor just presses onto a pipe that comes off here. So you can grab a hold of it and wiggle it. It'll come off just like that. Pull your fuel line off. Now you gotta kind of go at an angle here. You see this has got a Z-bend in it. And it goes into this hole right here on your your throttle plate. So this is your actual carburetor. There's not much to this. And I put a note in at the beginning of the video. You want to drain all your gas out of your tank, because as soon as you pop this off, you're going to lose all your fuel. So now we can look at just the carburetor. And you can buy the whole carburetor as a complete assembly for between, I'm going to say $10 and $20, depending on your model, because there may be slight variances in these. You really want to get the numbers off your engine and check it. These are not one of my favorite carburetors, but I mean they are fairly reliable. I mean I've never had no major issues out of them. There's been a few common problems, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, you see this little white piece, that's actually a retainer clip that holds an O-ring in here. And that's what seals it to that little pipe that sticks out right there. Similar to the old push mower engines. Now we're not going to actually clean this carburetor on camera, we're just going to take it apart and show you what to do. First of all, you want to clean off all the outside, to spray it off with carburetor cleaner and compressed air. Make sure you got safety glasses on. You can use the same T20, or probably 7mm will fit these too. Yep. So just use the T20. I think it's a little simpler to work with. Take these two screws out. And these also have a drain plug on the bottom too, we'll talk about here in a little bit. This should come right off. Yeah. Now if it's stuck and don't want to come off, you can take like a straight screwdriver and kind of pry on both sides here a little bit and get it to come off. Now this has an O-ring gasket around it. You see it's that orangish red color gasket. You got to pay attention to how this comes off. because as you see, if you put it on the wrong way, it's not going to go back on. You can break it if you try to force it. So it only goes back on in one position. You can notice there's a little recessed area that goes right over where your jet or pickup tube is. That's the only way it'll go back on. So, as I said, these are fairly simple. So at this point, you want to go ahead and clean out your fuel bowl. If there's any dirt in here, just spray it out with carburetor cleaner. Maybe take a little brush to it. Flush that out real good. You don't always have to take the float out. If it's all clean and you don't really see no dirt or anything, you don't really necessarily take this out. But if this is stuck and doesn't want to move, or it's not going to let fuel come in, so you'll have to take it out. So you got this little float pin right here that you have to grab a hold of. You can actually pop these out of a pin. They're a little bit different than the older style carburetors. And just kind of pop it out. And there's the needle valve. You see it's a rubber tip needle valve. It just fits in that little slot right there. Sometimes that'll stick or that rubber piece will mess up. So you should be able to get, like if you're using compressed air or have a little piece of hose you want to blow into, you should be able to get it to come out of here. Now the major problem I found with these when they don't want to run is, see, your fuel comes in right here in this little fitting right here. Then there's a ball right here that just kind of seals off the end, and it comes out inside, and that's where it's where your fuel gets mixed into the air. If you look right in here, you'll see a little tiny bump right there, and that's where the plastic tube that connects to the inlet right here is. So this serves as your jet, emulsion tube, whatever you want to refer to it as on this type of carburetor. So this is bad about getting plugged up or gummed up from old fuel. Like you can really see it. You can see it, a little bump right there now. But you need to be able to get air and carburetor cleaner in through this inlet. You should be able to see it like spraying out inside there. And again, make sure you get safety glasses on. I always like to keep my finger over this because it's possible for that ball to pop out. You want to try to seal this off the best you can and shoot carburetor cleaner through it, and you should be able to see it come out inside the throat of the carburetor. If you don't, you may want to take a little piece of off a wire brush and get in here and try to clean it out and keep working with it, and you'll eventually get it. I've only had to replace one of these, and for some reason, if it went more than 2 or 3 days, it would not start no matter what you did. So we put a new one on it, and no problems at all since then. And they're pretty cheap to replace too, so it's not like you're going to be out of much. But most of the time you can fix these fairly simple. Now let's put the float back in. Just drop that needle valve down in there and press twice. Now so it's working. So this controls the fuel coming into the carburetor. So now you're pretty much ready to put it back together, and hopefully that was the only thing that was wrong with it, and it'll start right up after you prime it. So now let's get ready to put this back on. Get these 2 screws going in here, and make sure it just don't go crooked like that, and your O-ring gasket can kind of catch on there. There we go. You don't want to get these super tight because, again, it's all plastic. You don't want to break anything. Now let's talk about this drain plug real quick. So you need a 10mm Allen wrench or socket in this case. And this is not actually threaded. It has like a turn and press kind of fit. And this is used for draining gas out of the bowl. So highly recommend, if you're going to store one of these for a while, not being used, siphon or drain the gas out of your tank. Then have a little container underneath the mower. Take this plug out and catch the fuel and put it in your can. Because if you leave fuel in these, like during the winter, they're bad about not wanting to start in the spring. But if you drain all the fuel out of it, You put fresh gas in it in the spring, it should fire right up. I also want to briefly talk about the throttle linkage, the governor linkage. So you see, this is where to connect to on the carburetor. If you follow it down, you'll see it connects on this arm down here. It goes into a mechanical governor. It just goes into that hole right there. I'm sorry about it being so dirty. And if you see this spring right here, this is your actual governor spring. And this tab right here can be bent. Bend it this way towards the head of the engine to increase the RPMs. You can bend it back down to decrease the engine RPMs just to kind of have a little bit of control on it. You don't want to go past 3600. That's the maximum speed these engines are capable of. Recommended, I believe 2800 is the recommended RPM for push mower engines, so you don't want to exceed that. Alright, so now we're ready to put the carburetor back on. I just wanted to show you the linkage. So you got to kind of go at an angle like this to get the linkage to go in. And go in just like that. Then you line up this little vent thing here with that slot. And then just press it back in like that. Go ahead and hook your fuel line up. It may be easier to do it before you put the carburetor back on. Don't forget your fuel clamp here. Bring it up here and put it on there, just like that. Now we're ready to put the cover back on. Now again, it's kind of challenging. You pretty much have to reach in behind here to put pressure up against that hose to fit on there like that. And you actually have a little pin here. There's the hose connected on there. And you also have like a little alignment pin here. It's got to go in just like that. So I actually pulled the hose off there, so you got to pay attention to that. So I'd sum it up to say these are pretty reliable carburetors and easy to work on. Not a fan of them. I like the old carb on tank setups, like on the older ones. They just seem to be like an unbeatable design to me. But everything's went to this type of setup just about. So it is what it is. If you want something new, you got to go with the flow. But I'm still running all the old flatheads on all my equipment if I can. It's kind of challenging to get this one screw to start. Like once you set it in there, you're fine. Okay, so there will be one more over here, but we don't have it. I'm missing it for some reason. Now you're ready to put the air filter back on. If it looks anything like this, get you another one to put in it. This engine is not going to be used for anything, so we're just putting this back in. Right now, this is actually a trash found engine. So now you're ready to, obviously this engine is not mounted, so it's sitting at an angle. Now you're ready to put gas in it and fire it up. Hopefully it fires right up. So, well guys, if you got any questions or comments about this type of carburetor or push mower engine, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So, thanks for watching guys. Catch you on the next one.